Hello everybody, welcome you all at Learning is Fun with Prajnaparamita. I am again with you with another important video lesson, and today's lesson is about clause. In my last video lesson, I have already discussed the different elements of a sentence where we find clause, phrase, word and morpheme and the difference between phrase and clause. Those who didn't watch that video lesson yet, please do watch, because if you watch that video, you may know all about phrases. So today I am going to tell you more information about clause. What is clause? What are the elements of a clause? What are the categories of a clause? What is the division of a clause? All these things I am going to discuss in this video lesson. So stay with me till the end. Here, as you all know that clauses are the unit of a sentence. Here you find that in a sentence there is sometimes one or more than one clauses are there, and the clauses are the combination of different phrases. Here, suppose this is a sentence that is the evening have turned very cold just recently. In this sentence, you find this sentence is a combination of several phrases. In my last video, I have discussed in detail about all these phrases. So, here you find when it is a clause, you find in that clause there are so many phrases. So, what is the difference between clause and phrase then? Phrases are the combination of words, but in a clause we find more elements are there. In a clause, you find or we may find 5 elements are there. In there, each and typical combinations of those elements. What is that? We in a clause, when it is a clause, you find a subject, a verb, an object, a complement, and adverbial, etc. And these elements are there in different combinations together when they form a clause. Sometimes it may be subject and verb. Sometimes it may be consists of 3 elements. Sometimes it consists of 4 elements. Sometimes it consists of 5 elements. So there is a combination of these elements when we are talking about clause. On these clause are the combination of 5 elements. Let's see the examples now. Here, my mother usually enjoys parties very much. Here in this combination of a clause, we find subject, adverbial, verb, object and adverbial. So this is a type of combination. For example, sometimes we find in a clause subject and verbs are there, and subject, verb and object. For example, I like coffee. So here you find I, subject, like, verb, coffee, that is object. So this is a special kind of combination. Another example for you, he gave me a pen. Here you find subject, verb and object. There are two objects, or there are 2 types of objects are there. Those who wants to know more about object, I have also video lesson about English object. I will provide the link in the description box below. Please do watch those video lesson also to know everything about object, complement and other things. Now, types of clause. What are the types then? We can categorize clauses into 3 broad categories, that is independent clause, subordinate clause and coordinating clause. What is that? Now, when we are talking about independent clause, that means independent clause traditionally divided into two parts, subject part and predicate part. That is, subject and predicate are very common for an independent clause. Those who wants to know more about predicate, I am going to give the link in the description box below of that video lesson regarding predicate. So if you watch that video lesson, you may find all these things and you may know better about predicate and the difference between object and predicate. So there are three types of sentences in English language structurally, that is simple, complex and compound. In a simple sentence, there is a single independent clause is used there. Here, this is an example for you. That is, if we take this sentence, he had given the girl an apple. When we are see this independent clause, we find two elements are there, subject and predicate. And subject is he, and in the predicate part we find one auxiliary or operator and another is predication, that is he is subject, had auxiliary, given the girl an apple, this is a predication part. And when we just like to, or when we just wish to turn this sentence into an interrogative one, we just change the position of auxiliary and subject, that is had he given the girl an apple. This is the example of the independent clause. Now, let's see the subordinate clause. Actually, when we are talking about subordinate, that means something depends on something, or something depends on someone or something. That means clauses which are embedded in other clauses, that means depend on other clauses. In a complex sentence, there is a main clause and one or more subordinate clauses are there functioning as the element of a sentence. So, when we are talking about subordinate clause, they actually functions as functions as an element of that sentence, and subordinate clause they depend on the main clause. And there is another important feature of a subordinate clause. If we consider subordinate clause alone, they do not have any meaning. They derive meaning when only when they are used with the main clause. So here, this is an example. You can borrow my car if you need it. Here in this sentence, we find there is a main clause and there is a subordinate clause, that is if you need it. If we consider this part of sentence alone, if we need it, it doesn't have any meaning to us. When I am talking about this thing, if you need it, you must ask me, what do you need? So, this subordinate clause or subordinate clause also always depends on the main clause for their meaning. Another example of subordinate clause here is there for you. That is in a sentence where we find a main clause, and in that main clause there is an embedded subordinate clause. Although I admire her reasoning, I reject her conclusion. In this sentence you find the subordinate clause, although I admire her reasoning, this part of sentence depends on the latter part of the sentence, I reject her conclusion. If I say, although I admire her reasoning, this part do not have any separate meaning. This part of sentence always depends on the other part of the sentence, that is, I reject her conclusion. If we say this part of this sentence or subordinate clause, we do not have any meaning out of this. We do not figure out any meaning of this subordinate clause unless we say the latter part or the main clause in that sentence. Now, coordinating clause. What is that coordinating clause? Coordinating clause is that when two or more main clause are joined together with coordinating conjunction like and, but, or, etc., they are called coordinating clause. And coordinating clause are used in a compound sentence. Let's see the examples now. She fell ill and she left the place. Here you find and is a coordinating conjunction that joins together two separate main clauses. That is, she felt ill, she left the place. And one interesting thing is that when we are talking about coordinating clause, their main clauses are used and they are joined together with coordinating conjunction, and these main clauses have their individual and separate meaning. John plays guitar, but her sister plays piano. Here you find but, that is a coordinating conjunction that joins together two separate main clause. Similarly, I admire her reasoning, but I reject her conclusion. Here also you find but that joins together two separate main clause. Here is an example for you, that is two main clause, that I admire her reasoning, this is a main clause. I reject her conclusion, this is another main clause. They join together with a coordinating conjunction, that is but. Now let's see the difference between subordinate clause and coordinating clause. As I have discussed already, that subordinate clause is called dependent clause. They depends on other elements of sentence for the completion of their meaning, to complete their meaning, etc. So the subordinate clause acts as a part of a sentence, whereas when we are talking about coordinating clause, they are the combination of main clause. They joins together with a coordinating conjunction. For subordinate clause, they do not have a separate meaning, but in case of coordinating clause, they are grammatically correct and they have separate meaning. Subordinating conjunction are used for the subordinate clause and coordinating conjunctions are used in a coordinating clause. For example, although he tried hard, he failed. Here, although is a subordinating conjunction. He tried hard but he failed. This is a coordinating conjunction. Now, let's see the difference between subordinating conjunction and coordinating conjunction. What is that? Together with its following clauses acts as a part of other clause. As I have told you, subordinating conjunction acts as a part of other clauses. And what is the coordinating conjunction then? What is the difference? Actually, coordinating conjunction, the links or joins the other part or the main clauses in a sentence. So when we are talking about subordinating conjunction, they act as a part of other clause, whereas coordinating conjunction actually joins or links the main clause. Another important example difference is that like, because, when, that, which, if, although, while, they are subordinating conjunction, whereas and, but, or, these are coordinating conjunction. Here as an example for you, I will phone you when I arrive. Here you find when is a subordinating conjunction. She was poor but she was honest. Here but is a coordinating conjunction. Now let's see the functional classes of subordinate clause. Here, up to this, we have already noticed the element and categories of clauses. Now, I am going to tell you what are the functional classes of subordinate clause. From the very beginning, you find function, that is what type of function or how they acts in a sentence. Depending on that, we find there are 4 types of subordinate clause, that is nominal clause, adverbial clause, relative clause and comparative clause. Nominal clause is just something sounds like noun. It came from noun, derived from noun, nominal. So a nominal clause function to those of a noun in a sentence. For example, I'm not sure that I can remember the exact detail. Here you find nominal clause is used in the object part of that sentence, so it is performed the function of a noun for this sentence, so it is called the nominal clause. There are 6 categories or 6 types of nominal clauses. In my next video lesson, I am going to discuss about these nominal clause in detail. Now, another important subdivision or functional subdivision of subordinate clause is adverbial clause. Adverbial clause function as an adverb of time, place, condition, reason, etc. We left after the speeches ended, and relative clause functions as the modifier of a noun phrase. Here we find that the example, I know the man who is lonely. Here I know the man is a noun phrase, as you know already. Who is lonely, so who is lonely, these part of sentence functions as the modifier of that noun phrase. So relative clauses are sometimes called as an adjective clause also. Now let's see the comparative clause. Comparative clause resembles as adjective and adverbs in their modifying function. He is not as clever a man as I thought. So here also you find there is a comparison structures are there. In my next video, I am going to discuss all these clauses in detail. So hope you like this video. If you have any queries or if you like this video really, please do comment in the comment section, and please put a like to this video lesson also, and do not forget to write more requirements about the video lesson, your requirements, which type of thing you just wants to know from me. Please do comment in the comment section. So no more today. Thank you for listening and bye bye.